Today, you're reading from How to Train Your Viscount. I'm excited to have you read it. So, for the listeners who don't know the book, the only one who can help her is the man who broke her heart. 4 years ago, Lady Caroline Astley took one look at Henry Greville, Viscount Thetford, and fell horribly in love in that particular way you can only fall in love at the age of 15. He didn't just reject her, he humiliated her. But now, in a stroke of rotten luck, he's the only one who can help her. It turns out that the paste pendant she borrowed from her sister Anne was no fake. It's actually an ancient Egyptian amulet, and now Anne wants to auction it off to save hundreds of widows and orphans. What Caro can't bear to tell her sister is that the necklace was stolen from right around her neck. Caro has a few clues, but she doesn't know an amulet from an obelisk, and the trail has gone cold. Guess who grew up in a house stuffed with Egyptian artifacts? Caro may despise Henry, but she needs him if she's going to track down the thieves. Which begs the question of which is worse, letting down the orphans or risking her heart all over again? Sounds fantastic. So, Courtney, do you want to set up this scene you're about to read?
Absolutely. So, as you heard in the blurb, Henry insulted Caro most terribly some years ago. Now she has come to London and made her debut, and he is desperate to apologize. He sent her a series of apology letters. She never responded. He's been trying to track her down. So, this scene takes place at the moment he finally corners her.
How exciting.
Mm. As soon as Mr. Parkinson was gone, Caro swept out the door, ignoring the Viscount. She scanned the street. "Do you see our hack, Fanny? I believe it is left. And to think I paid the driver a shilling to wait." "That usually works," a deep voice intoned. The bothersome man had followed her outside. "What a shame you happened upon an unscrupulous driver." "Well," Caro said, with a brightness she did not feel, "I'm sure another one will come along presently." "You will find that hacks are few and far between south of the river, but I would be delighted to escort you home." He gestured to a handsome high-flyer phaeton with a gold basket seat and midnight blue velvet cushions. It was drawn by a pair of gorgeous matched grays, which were being held by his tiger, a freckle-faced boy of perhaps 10 years of age. "How fortunate that we happened upon each other." Caro glared into his smug face. "Fortunate is not the word I would use, and I would rather go back inside and eat that mummified hand someone pulled out of an Irish bog than get in your phaeton." She gave him her profile. "Now, if you will excuse me." An hour later, Caro found herself seated in Lord Thetford's phaeton. It was rather remarkable, the series of calamities that had transpired to get her to this point. She could take a detached enough perspective to appreciate that. Things had actually gotten off to a promising start. Lord Thetford had attempted to speak with her, irritating man that he was. But Fanny, bless her, had declared that Caro shouldn't be standing full in the sun, and had opened her parasol directly into the Viscount's face. She had then proceeded to stand in front of her mistress like the three-headed dog that guarded the gates of hell. This had spared her from having to converse with him, but, as much as it pained her to admit that he was right, more than a half-hour passed without a single hackney carriage passing by. It had become clear that she needed a new plan. Her plan had not involved getting into Lord Thetford's phaeton, however. Lady Caroline Astley was not so easily defeated as that. She had informed Fanny that they would cross Blackfriars Bridge on foot and have better luck finding a hack on the other side. The walk had begun splendidly, if one's notion of splendidly involved hearing a string of obscenities that would have made even Harrington blush, when the drivers of two carts made for the same opening and almost collided. A fist-fight ensued. Then a lecherous drunkard staggered over with arms outstretched toward Caro's bosom. She was once again saved by her indomitable maid, who stepped in front of her mistress wielding her parasol like a battle axe, shouting, "Don't even think about it, you buffle-headed Teetaw!" And to think that Caro had initially been disappointed not to have a fancy French maid. She made a note to take Fanny to Gunter's that afternoon. She loved the ices there. After the drunkard, it had simply been a matter of trying not to breathe in too deeply of the rancorous malodors of the Thames, and ignoring Lord Thetford's plaintive calls to give up this foolishness and get in his carriage, because of course the blasted man had followed her. But she had ignored him and carried on. And then the end of the bridge came into sight, and she had thought she was going to make it. She truly had. But then she had stepped in it. Literally. Lord Thetford grinned as he climbed up beside her. I wonder what sort of manure that was. Caro did not deign to answer, but she was fairly certain the answer was pig. Her father was passionate about his herd of Gloucestershire old spots, so she had some degree of familiarity with the subject. Whatever it was, it had a remarkable case of tapeworm, he mused. She glared silently over the waters of the Thames. My favorite part, he continued, was when it sucked the slipper right off your foot, and it immediately soaked through. I don't blame you for leaving it there. What a gorgeous team you have, my lord. Do you need me to drive them for you, or are you familiar with the process? He glanced back to make sure Fanny and his tiger, Billy, had squeezed onto the tiny rumble seat behind them, then nudged the Greys forward. Caro shifted about, scooting as close to the door as she could manage. Since making her bow, 5 gentlemen had taken her for a drive in Hyde Park. She knew their phaetons had been every bit as narrow as this one, but for some reason their proximity had affected her not at all. Sitting next to Lord Thetford, on the other hand, she felt exquisitely self-conscious. The phaeton hit a bump, and his shoulder nudged hers. She all but jolted out of her skin. Come, Lady Caroline, he said after a moment. It is better this way. She maintained her stony silence, so he continued, I know you wish to avoid me, but what you have failed to notice is that we are, how you say, doomed. Doomed? How precisely you have captured my feelings. First, we ran into each other over the mummified child in Thomas Hope's Egyptian room. Today it was the Laverian Museum, with its assorted bog parts and room full of monsters. It is reaching the point of absurdity. Where will we meet next? The Hunterian Museum? They have the skeleton of an Irish giant on display. And if you thought the monsters at the Laverian were grotesque, would you like to know what I found to be the most hideous sight at the Laverian Museum? She asked sweetly. I will give you a hint. It was in the same room as the remarkable horseshoes. He had the temerity to laugh. My point is, it's far better for me to get my apology over with today, because apparently the fates have doomed us to run into each other at every crackpot's house and freak show in London until I've had my chance. And you would not believe how many freak shows there are in London. How annoying that he was right. She gave an aggrieved sigh. Fine, you may proceed. She glared at him out of the corner of her eye. He looked nervous. As well he should. Excellent, he began awkwardly. Well, 4 years ago, I sent you a letter. I sent you 4 letters, actually. Did I cast them into the fire without even bothering to open them? Why, yes, I did. Behind them, his tiger Billy gave a low whistle. I see, Lord Thetford said. Then you are unaware of the sentiments contained therein. What I wrote was, allow me to guess, Caro said. Seeing me standing on that balcony was one of the worst moments of your life. It was never your intention to insult me, nor to cause me any pain. You feel wretched, you are desperately sorry, and you beg my forgiveness, and so on and so forth. Do I have the gist of it? You understand me remarkably well. It's difficult for me to even find words to... He gave her a tortured look. Caro, I can't tell you how sorry I am. I was miserable for weeks afterwards. I still think about it every day, and I cringe, thinking how you said you didn't even want to dance with me, how you were dreading it. Yes, there was a loud thwacking sound as he grunted in pain. Beg pardon, my lord, Fanny said loudly. I was just opening me parasol. He rubbed the back of his head. I don't know why you even need a parasol. We're fully in the shade. Fanny returned. And what was it you said next? Caro said. Ah, yes, that you didn't want me following you around because I was a naive little child without any charms, that I was as flat as the Salisbury Plains. Oh, that's very bad, Billy said, in what he doubtlessly thought was a whisper. Very bad indeed, Fanny agreed. I mean, look at her. Is he blind? Billy asked. 'Tis either that or stupid, Fanny muttered. The problem is that he don't have any sisters, Billy continued. 4 brothers, but no girls. Me, I've got 3 sisters, and I know full well Billy, Lord Thetford snapped, your commentary is neither required nor appreciated. Yes, my lord. Beg pardon, my lord. And my personal favorite, Caro said, was when you said I was as dull as ditch water. Hearing a rustling behind her, she turned, raising a hand. Thank you, Fanny, but there is no need to hit him again. Fanny already had her parasol aloft. I didn't know he said all that. I told you he insulted me most terribly to his friends on the balcony. You left out a few pertinent details, Fanny grumbled. Returning to the matter at hand, Lord Thetford said. Yes, that is what I said. I cannot deny it. All I can do is tell you how deeply sorry I am. Sorry to have been caught, Caro scoffed. That's not it. That's not it at all. Next, you will explain how you had over-imbibed, how your friends were goading you, how, both of which happen to be true, but those things are entirely irrelevant. I should have taken them to task. It is to my shame that I did not. No, I do not wish to make an excuse. I wish to make an apology. The only reason I said what I said is because I was a jackass. Based on our recent conversations, your use of the past tense seems a trifle optimistic. I do not blame you for being skeptical, nor do I blame you for hating me, but I have changed as a result of that day. I have, he insisted, seeing her dubious look. I never used to consider the feelings of anyone but myself. I am far from perfect today, but at least I'm trying. I cannot honestly say that I was before, and I'm no longer friends with Arthur Nichols and Jacob Cartwright. I began to notice a spiritedness to them, and I found that I did not much like the man I became in their company. He shook his head. One good thing came out of that horrible day because I made a brutal self-discovery. At least I'm no longer a complete cad as I was at the age of 21. Caro gazed at the passing scenery, absorbing his words. In truth, it was a better apology than she had thought he would make. She had expected a string of excuses. She was startled to realize that he was sincere. But there remained one problem. I believe you, she said. I believe that you regret having ever said it. I even believe you are sincerely sorry for having hurt me. But, she raised a hand as he started to interrupt, I also believe that you meant every word you said that day. I, his expression was plaintive, his brow furrowed in distress. Don't even bother to deny it, Caro said. The thing is, it had nothing to do with you specifically. At the age of 21, I wasn't interested in young ladies. Behind them, Fanny gave a great snort, which she then made a very half-hearted attempt to disguise as coughing. Lord Thetford sighed heavenward. Fine. That is to say, I was not interested in respectable young ladies. That's more like it, Fanny muttered. Billy concurred. The point is, Lord Thetford said, casting a glare over his shoulder, the fault was entirely mine. And Billy was right earlier. He gave her a rueful half-smile. Look at you now, the most beautiful girl in London. I'm not glad to have caused you pain, but I believe the end result will be better for you in every way. You would never be interested in the likes of me. His face fell as he returned his gaze to the horses. You'll probably be married to Lord Graverley before the month is out. Caro wasn't so sure. She hadn't even decided whether she wanted to set her cap for Lord Graverley, and in any case, there was no appropriate response to such a remark. She demurred. He drew in a breath. I've never dared to hope you might forgive me. I never felt I could possibly deserve it. But, she waved this off. Oh, I'm sure I will forgive you. He looked up, his face radiating shock and hope, and something else. Caro found it difficult to maintain eye contact when he wore such an expression. It was a bit like staring directly into the sun. Your obvious sincerity makes it difficult to carry on hating you. Then, do you think, could we be friends, Caro? She closed her eyes for a beat. No, my lord, I honestly do not think we ever could. She raised a hand to silence his protest. We will see each other in the future. We run in the same circles that cannot be avoided. I will not cut you when we do. You need never worry about that. I will nod and I will smile. I will say good evening if the circumstances require it. But on those occasions when we meet, the kindest thing you could possibly do for me is to leave me alone. But, but, I will never treat you with such disrespect again. You have my word of honor upon that. And that isn't the problem. The problem is that you only wish to be my friend because you pity me. That is not true. Your first impression of me was that I was annoying and insipid, as dull as ditch water. And ever since I overheard you on the balcony, you have thought of me as poor, pathetic Caro. Yes, you have, she said when he made to protest. You never would have sought me out if I hadn't overheard what you said, if you had not felt sorry for me. And there is nothing, absolutely nothing I despise more than being pitied. I cannot abide it. I would much rather have the world's hatred than its condescension. It is why I have been avoiding this horrid conversation for all these years. But I like you, he protested. She arched a skeptical eyebrow at him. You didn't 4 years ago. No, he agreed, but yesterday. That was nice, wasn't it? It was not ladylike to roll one's eyes, but really, who could blame her? Allow me to clarify. Your notion of nice involves your likening me to a pig and a cow, my calling you asinine in return, your discussion of venereal disease followed by cannibalism, and my hissing at you to shut up before someone heard the ungodly things coming out of your mouth. Well, I enjoyed it, he muttered. I know you believe that, but the truth is the only reason you think you like me today is because you are determined to do so, because you feel guilty. Your true opinion of me is what you stated on the balcony 4 years ago. That is not true. I had the wrong impression of you entirely. I do not believe you. He gave her that look again, the same one he had been sporting for most of the conversation. It was beseeching, crestfallen, pitying. She could not stand it. Will you stop looking at me like that? How did we stumble into such a maudlin conversation? It is absolutely intolerable. I never imagined a context in which I might utter these words, but I preferred it when we were discussing venereal disease. He barked out a laugh. Truth be told, I did too. How shocking to find ourselves in agreement. Now, we're almost there. Do me a favor and say something completely obnoxious so I can go back to loathing you again. Just the first thing that springs into your mind. You have such a natural talent for it. He was grinning at her. Very well, I will do my best. May I speak frankly? Am I to understand that our conversations up until this point have been your most polite circumspection? How very alarming. You, Caroline Astley, are a sham. Do any of your suitors know what an acid tongue you really have? La, they do not, and I have no intention of letting them know the awful truth. At least, not until I've caught one of them in the parson's mousetrap. He shook his head. Have you considered that you might be going about it all wrong? That you should look for a man who appreciates your wit? Such a man does not exist. I will sooner find a unicorn. He looked up at her when she said that for some reason. That's not true. Many a man would find your wit appealing. Spoken like a man. Trust me when I say that wit is not appreciated in a woman. Indeed, it is barely tolerated. No, it is something I must conceal at all costs. And yet you launched into me without hesitation. That's because I do not care the slightest bit what you think of me.